Hi everyone, welcome to another Heroes of the Grid Ranger video. Today I'm going to be continuing with the Light and Darkness Ranger coverage with Heckyl, the Dino Charge Dark Ranger. Heckyl's combat deck consists of 3 3-shield cards, 4 2-shield cards, and 3 1-shield cards. Now jumping right into Heckyl is his character ability, which is Dark Pride. It says, when you would play a card from your hand, you may play the top card of your discard pile instead. If you do, you must then discard the top card of your deck. So know if you do use Heckyl's ability, that does use up your Ranger turn, because it does say when you would play a card from your hand, you may play from the top of your discard pile instead. If it says instead, then that means it's using up your Ranger turn. So you'll see he's kind of similar to how Adam was in terms of he plays with the top card of his discard pile, but even though they both have that strategy, they both do it in very, very different ways. And also, you also can see from his ability, every time you, if this is not limited to once per battle, you can do it as many times as you want, with the caveat that you have to, every time you do, you have to discard the top card of your deck. So if you do run out of cards because of this, then Heckyl is defeated and has to go back to the command center. And if you don't have any more energy tokens in the command center, then the Rangers lose the game. So you have to be very careful with Heckyl. And yeah, let's just get going with his combat deck. And his first card is Spin Cutter. It's a 1-cost, 3-dice attack with 1 shield for defense. Its ability says, after this attack resolves, you may discard the top card of your deck. If you do, return this card to your hand instead of discarding it. Spin Cutter is actually a pretty good card to play right at the beginning. You play that for 1 energy. Since you don't have any cards in your discard pile, you wouldn't be able to make use of Heckyl's Dark Pride anyway. But Spin Cutter will let you put the top card of your deck into the discard pile. So now if you want, in the next turn, you can use his Dark Pride to play whatever it is that you discarded. And a 3-dice attack on top of that, it's it's standard, but 3 dice is always good to get things going. Alright, his next card is Dark Encore. It's a 1-cost maneuver card with 3 shields for defense. Its ability says another ranger may immediately play the top card of their discard pile. They must place that card on the bottom of their deck instead of discarding it. Unfortunately, Heckyl cannot take advantage of this card himself in order to keep his deck filled, so he can keep using his Dark Pride ability. It says another ranger has to do it, but this is still a very good card to help other rangers. Let's say Merrick discarded his Lunar Q because he had to defend against an attack, and it's now the top card of his discard pile. You could play Dark Encore, and so that way Merrick can play his Lunar Q from his discard pile. You still have to pay the 3 energy for the Lunar Q, but I mean it's a 4-dice attack, and it readies an Exhausted Sword card, so it could definitely be worth the cost of 4 energy total. And not only that, his Lunar Q would then go to the bottom of his deck instead of discarding it. And now he can take another big attack if he needs to. He knows he has that at the very bottom. If nothing else, he has a 3 shield to defend with. So it's a very good card that you have to kind of use. You have to put kind of some thought into how you want how best to take advantage of it. But it's a good way to not only deal some damage, it's also to keep another ranger from running out of cards. Next up is Talon Slash. It's a 0-cost, 2-dice attack with 2 shields for defense. Its ability says, if you play this card from your discard pile, gain 1 energy. So if you took 2 damage and Talon Slash was the card you revealed for defense, it goes to your discard pile. Since it's now the top card of your discard pile, you can use Dark Pride to play it right away, and you'll gain 1 energy for 0 cost. But Dark Pride will then force you to discard the top card of your deck, so unless it's the second copy of Talon Slash, you won't be able to make use of it again. Unless you play another card in Heckyl's deck, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I did use Talon Slash from my discard pile in my game, and so once or twice, so I was able to gain an energy from it. It helps a lot. His next card is Clandestine Tactics. It's a 0-cost reaction card with 2 shields for defense. Its ability says, play this card at the start of a battle. Gain 1 energy, you may flip 1 foot soldier card face down as though defeated. Do not remove a foot soldier figure from that location. Okay, so as you just can see, you can automatically flip over an enemy card that's, well, a foot soldier card, I should say. It can't be any enemy card. You can't do it against a monster, nemesis, or boss. But this could be a good card to use if there's going to be 1 foot soldier card that's causing you some trouble, has a passive ability. I know the Putty Patrollers have one that increases the damage of all enemy cards by 1. So if you want to just flip that over so you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the battle, that would be a great use of this card. Like it says, you flip it face down as though defeated, but you don't remove the figure from the location, so you don't get any closer to obtaining a Zord card. because you're not technically defeating it, you're just getting rid of its ability because it's face down. So it's has give or take for 0 cost. It's really good, and you have to play it at the start of a battle. That's the really big caveat to this card. You have to play it at the very start of a battle. It doesn't say at the start of a ranger turn or an enemy turn or something like that. If nothing else, you gain 1 energy for this card, and you don't have to flip a foot soldier card face down. You could just play this card at the start to gain an energy. So it is very versatile, but like I said, it can be very helpful. You just have to do it at the right time, or kind of know what you're getting yourself into as while you're setting up the battle sequence. All right, moving on to his next card is going to be Dark Energem. It's a 2-cost maneuver card with 1 shield for defense. Its ability says discard your entire hand. Until the end of this battle, you may play Dark Ranger cards from your discard pile, and you may rearrange the order of your discard pile. Now, I'm not entirely sure because I never drew Dark Energem when I was using Heckyl, but I think this card would override Heckyl's Dark Pride ability, because this card just says until the end of this turn you may play Dark Ranger cards from your discard pile, and you may rearrange the order of your discard pile. So I'm not sure if that works in conjunction with Dark Pride, in the sense that, let's say, if you only had 2 cards in your hand, and then you play 2 other cards in your hand when you play Dark Energem, you play Dark Energem, you discard those 2 other cards, and now whenever you play from the discard pile, I'm not sure if Dark Energem allows you to not have to discard from the top of your deck. That's what it seems like, but I can see that being maybe a little too powerful. But then again, it's only until the end of the battle, and you're discarding your entire hand for it. So I could see this being overpowered or not very powerful, depending on how you want to interpret it. Like I said, I never drew it, so I didn't really make any judgment calls either way. But I would say this card would override Dark Pride. So because of Dark Energem, now you can play any cards in your discard pile, Dark Ranger cards from your discard pile, and you would not have to discard the top card of your deck anymore from Dark Pride because you're not using that character ability. You're playing from your discard pile through Dark Energem. So that's my call. You can always correct me in the comments, let me know, and you can just keep rearranging your discard pile. It doesn't say just once, and you may rearrange the order of your discard pile. So you could kind of keep until the end of the battle. You can rearrange them. So I'm guessing you keep rearranging the cards, otherwise it kind of be no point. They would just say discard your entire hand in the order that you choose, if they wanted you to just keep the top card of your deck, if they wanted you to keep the order of the discard pile. So you can keep rearranging, so you could take advantage of Talon Slash. You could use that to gain an energy for 1 turn, and then you could play Spin Cutter if you want. So if you want to get it back to your hand, you could use Spin Cutter's ability. You can move Spin Cutter to the top of your deck to play it, and then you would discard the next card at the top of your deck to add it back to your hand, and then you could rearrange it again to play Talon Slash later. It's a very tricky card. But, I mean, I can see the potential for it, especially if you get his power weapon, which we'll talk about next, into your discard pile, and you keep playing it over and over again from your discard pile. So I guess that's the big draw of it. You can keep using the same card over and over again if you want, because you're not susceptible to Dark Pride's deck discard drawback. So you could use Talon Slash twice to gain a couple energy, and then rearrange your deck to play his power weapon, which we'll talk about now. His power weapon is Spino Blade. It's a 3-cost, 5-dice attack with 3 shields for defense. Its ability says you may ignore the guard keyword when choosing a target for this attack. While this card is in your discard pile, reduce its energy cost by 1. Spino Blade, this is a card you definitely want to play from your discard pile if you can help it, because it becomes a 2-cost card. Especially with Dark Energem, if you're not having to discard the top card of your deck, you could keep playing. You could use Spino Blade for 2 cost, then rearrange, put Talon Slash on top of your deck, use that for a couple turns, and then flip it back over to use another Spino Blade again for the 2 energy that you just earned back from Talon Slash. Yeah, but 5 dice, ignoring the guard keyword, potentially only 2 cost. I mean, it's a very powerful power weapon. And I guess it looks like he's playing it like a flute. That's what it looks like in the picture, so I think it's kind of cool. Maybe a nod to the Dragon Dagger. Finally, we'll talk about his Zord card, which is the Spino Zord. It says, exhaust this card at any time. Any ranger may return up to 3 cards from their discard pile to their hand. They must then discard an equal number of cards from their hand. It says any ranger can do it, so it doesn't have to be Heckyl that takes advantage of it, but if a ranger lost their power weapon because they had to block with it, you could use Spino Zord to get it back, and they can discard a card from their hand that they're not going to really use, or doesn't really help them anymore. For Heckyl, if he had Spin Cutter in his discard pile and you wanted to use it, You use Spinosaur to add it to your hand, and then you could discard, let's say, Clandestine Tactics, because it's already past the start of a battle, so you can't use it anymore. You can put it back in your discard pile. Now you have a Spin Cutter in your hand to use, and you could maybe use it to discard Talon Slash at the top of the discard pile, or maybe his Spinal Blade could be put on top of his deck because of Spin Cutter's ability, so now it'll be a 2-cost card for a future turn. Yeah, lots of combo potential with the Spinozord. Since any ranger can take advantage of it, this is very much a team player type card. Now I will talk about his combat deck breakdown in more detail. Heckyl has 2 copies of Dark Encore, 2 copies of Clandestine Tactics, 2 copies of Talon Slash, 2 copies of Spin Cutter, 1 copy of Dark Energem, and 1 copy of Spinal Blade. So as you can see, even though Heckyl plays with the top card of his deck, his strategy is very different from that of Adam. Whereas Adams can swap cards from his hand and top of his discard pile, Heckyl can't do that. Heckyl, I found his strategy kind of, at least the two, I used him in one game and my brother used him in another game that we played once, and he doesn't tend to do much for a large portion of the game, but when he does strike very, very hard, and that's kind of his whole thing is that you have to be very careful as how to use him. You maybe only want to have a few, maybe 2 or 3 cards in your hand, and maybe take the first bit of damage for the team, so that way you can have cards in discard pile to play. And you have to be very, very cognizant of how many cards you still have left in your deck. Heckyl doesn't really have any ways to refill his deck on his own, so maybe pairing him with someone like, I don't know, let's just say Billy, because he has the Triceratops, who can add 2 cards from any ranger's deck back to from the discard pile back to their deck. And Billy may not be the best example, but any ranger that allows other rangers to add cards from the discard pile back to their decks is a great pairing for Heckyl. But yeah, that is Heckyl in a nutshell. So I hope you look forward to the next video. In the meantime, head on over to onceranger.com to check out the full card database, and affiliate links will be provided below. Thank you.